Welcome back to another episode of The Common Theory. This episode is going to be very entertaining for you guys. So this is kind of like a little prequel for our tournament experience. And what we're going to be doing here is that this is going to be the week prior to the Common Cause. So the three of us are going to be playing the same exact list, and we'll be getting back with you guys after this about our experiences. So the best part about this is that we're going to be telling you why we're doing this to begin with, why we've even selected some of these cards, and kind of go from there. But with that said, Rohan, how you been doing, my bro? How's things been treating you?
I'm good, man. I'm deep in marathon training. For those who don't know, I'm a runner. I've been a runner my whole life. Did one in college for Virginia Tech. Now I'm like a dedicated distance runner. I'm running the Chicago Marathon in October, 45 plus miles a week at this point for the next few weeks.
Damn, that is
like all the time. It's like between that and cross training, which is like a lot of cycling, a lot of lifting. It's basically every day. It's a nonstop thing, and the hardest part is eating an outrageous amount of food. You have to eat like 4,000 calories a day, which is actually hard.
Damn, bro.
But actually difficult.
I wish you the best. I wish you the best.
Thanks. But yeah, that's me. I'm just in constant state of being sore. Franklin, how have you been, man?
Yeah, I've been pretty good. Fortunately, just another boring weekend where nothing really crazy happened except for driving around Miami looking for like Yu-Gi-Oh! McDonald's toys, and that's about it on Saturday.
I'm not sure how to respond to that.
First of all, they're Hello Kitty they're Hello Kitty Yu-Gi-Oh! Toys. So they all look fucking adorable.
I stand by my statement. So, but with that said, let's get into this. So, guys, like I was saying earlier, we're going to be discussing this deck that we are going to be playing at the Common Cause, and three of us are going to be playing the exact same deck list. And Rohan, this was your time to choose the list for us this week. May you introduce your deck, but can you also introduce why we're doing this and kind of hit the Patreons and let them know the whole concept behind this as a whole?
So we'll start with the concept, and then I'll get into the deck. So we are choosing to play the same list, as Chris mentioned, in tournament. This is something that was done way back in the day by tournament teams all through the 90s into the 2000s at PTQs, RCQs. Very famously, Brian Kibler was on one of the teams that I think his team started this. I don't forget the name of it. It escapes me, but we can post the link in the chat. I mean, in the description when we post this. But yeah, back in the day, these teams would show up at tournaments. They'd play the same list, maybe off like a card or two in the sideboard, but largely the same list. And it was really to understand how to push the format forward, how to create the absolute best decks for that particular format, whether it was standard or limited or extended at the time. I'm dating myself now.
I played extended too, so don't feel too bad.
It's all right. I never got a chance to play Type 1. But.
Yeah. So yeah, they'd play the same list. They would play it through the entire length of a tournament lifespan. So over the course of 6 months or so, and through every tournament round, they would make subtle tweaks to the deck based off the meta that they experienced at that particular tournament. So at the next round of the tournament, or the next tournament forward. In the series or in that season, they would have a tighter deck list. And then by the end, the idea is that, they have an extremely, extremely tuned, super tight deck list that will give them the best shot at becoming a champion.
Yep.
So,
and consistency factors and along all those lines.
Yep. That is something that has been done a little bit in Commander and CDH, like the Cabal guys. I think they're down in Florida. I think they're by you guys.
Yes.
Mostly.
Some of our friends are part of that. Yes.
Yeah, all those
very much so.
Now commentators.
Players. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So, I think Rockside is a great example. That's a deck list that has gone through this exact process over the course of a few years now, and it's largely why a lot of the top performing Rogside players have a deck list that's really, I mean, it's off by maybe 4 cards at the most. It's maybe one of the tightest deck lists of all the CDH, all the Commander deck lists. To our knowledge, this has not been done in Pauper or Pauper Commander. So that's where we come in. We are going to look to do this. So as Chris mentioned, he asked me to pick a deck. So I picked the deck list that's nearest and dearest to my heart, Malcolm Breaches. It's interesting for a few reasons. One, if you've seen our tier list, it is pretty high up there. It's an A-list deck. You know, of the 6 decks that are between S and A tier, it sits amongst them. The other thing that makes it really interesting is that it's not a perfected deck. So there's a few ways you can build this list. There's mostly the decks that have been performing really well in tournament over the past 6 months are close-ish, you know, but they're still off by maybe 15 cards or so, up to 20 cards. So that's still a sizable difference. While it's not all over the place like TPI, where there's tons of different ways to build it, and people haven't really figured it out. People have kind of figured out Malcolm Breaches, but we haven't made it really tight. So that's really the goal here, is to take this list that has still some loose ends to it, so to speak, and to really bring those ends in, hone it in, make it super tight, really see how tight we can get it and see how well we can perform with it.
Let me piggyback off of what you're saying there, Rohan. I would also like to introduce the simple factor that one thing that we're trying to do with this list specifically is kind of what you said. You said hone it, but we're honing it to your specific thought process. So what I find to be a little bit different from other variants that have existed so far in the format is that this list has, let me rephrase this, these commanders have always been considered the control. And I'm saying that loosely, right? That's the whole fingers and whatnot. Mm-hmm. If you guys can't see me because you're listening on Spotify, right? That, I'm doing little quotes with my hands. But these commanders have been considered the control pairing of these. And per Rohan, something that he has done quite well in his building and through his thought process is that this is no longer a control deck per se. This is, how would I say it, a profitable... A
value engine?
Enjoyable...
Farming resources.
Yes.
It's a farm deck.
I was sneaking into the farm part of that because it is a creature-based deck, much more so than a Malcolm Kedis, much more so than a Malcolm Rog. So it is actually doing what is said by the farm archetype, right? It is farming for resources. We even had a discussion as recently as this week to incorporate more cards for farming more resources. I'm very excited to discuss this here and give you guys some prequel because we're going to be playing it this weekend, as you guys know, even though we're going to be talking to you guys in the past, but still in the future. We're hoping for the best, but we're going to give you guys our thoughts with this. And with that said, I'd like to move over back to you, Rohan, to give a little description, once again, of your thoughts of what this deck is supposed to do so everyone can truly understand why and what we're doing.
The goal of this deck, well, first of all, it's a Malcolm Red deck, right? So it has the Malcolm Red Pinger combo, right? The Reckless Fireweaver, Reckless Fireweaver and Ingenious Artillerist, Pendragon Strongbow, they're all in there, right? It's got the Curiosity effects. It's got the stuff that you expect to see in a Malcolm Blue deck. But
the standard package.
Or Malcolm Red deck, standard package.
Yeah, all the pingers, all the artifact pingers, the spell pingers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The other thing that it has, however, is it has Breaches, right? Breaches is the unique thing that sets this list apart from your Malcolm Kedis or Malcolm Rog or whatever, right? Other Malcolm decks. What does Breaches give you, right? Breaches gives you a unique form of card advantage. When you hit your opponents with pirates, you get to exile the top card of their deck. You can play that card until the end of your turn. That means that you can play their lands, which is really the most important part. Well, sort of. It's the most important part until you build up to a specific type of combo that only Malcolm Breaches can do. The other really important part of breaches is that it says that whenever a pirate that you control deals damage to an opponent, you get to do this special exile card thing, right? Which, if you're familiar with other formats, modern especially, if you have Malcolm out and you have breaches out, all your pirates get the Ragavan effect. But Ragavan, if you're not familiar, it is a 2/1 monkey pirate for 1 red mana. When it connects and deals combat damage to an opponent, you get to exile the top card of the deck. You can play that card until your turn, and you also get a treasure. So what you're doing is basically creating a small army of Ragavans if you have both Malcolm out and Breaches out and whatever pirates that you have out. The list doesn't play a ton of pirates, but it plays enough that you're probably going to find at least one additional pirate on top of your 2 commanders who are both pirates, giving you basically 3 Ragavans by turn 4, turn 5-ish.
I just wanted to throw a little 2 cents. Sorry to interrupt you. I just wanted to throw out there that these 2 specific commanders actually don't say combat damage.
Oh, true.
So
it's damage, right?
It's just
any solid damage, which is very, very relevant for everything that we're discussing right now. So just wanted to throw those 2 cents in at you.
Good, yeah.
So.
Good, yeah. Good shot.
Not just that, they also both have some sort of form of evasion. Malcolm has flying, and Breaches has menace.
Yep.
Yeah. So what you're trying to do is play these evasive, like Franklin said, evasive pirates. So the pirates that are in the list, they have flying generally. So you're trying to hit people and accrue value. What are you accruing value for? Okay, so like we mentioned before, there is the standard Malcolm Red combo that's in the list. You can get that. You can find that. You can do the thing. There is another type of combo, though, when you have both Malcolm and Breaches out. It's a non-deterministic storm combo. So what that means is you can get a pinger out of some sort, any kind of pinger, right? As long as it's dealing at least 1 damage to each opponent, and you turn it into a pirate, and then you trigger it, whether usually it's playing an instant or sorcery, but some of them say any non-creature spell. You trigger it, it hits the opponents. If it's turned into a pirate and you have Malcolm and Breaches out, you're getting three treasures, and you're getting 3 exiled cards off the top of, or 1 exiled card off the top of each of your opponent's decks, giving you 3 exiled cards that you can play that turn. Here's the kicker. If one of those cards is a card that triggers your pinger, then you get to do it again. And you get to do it again. You do it again until someone dies. And then, depending on how many treasures you've built up, you can keep going. There's some complexities on how to keep the combo going. The list is built to be able to keep that going. But that is the other combo. What's really cool about that combo is that you have 2 pieces of your combo right in the command zone.
Yes.
Which is awesome.
It's very nice.
So really, you need 2 more pieces. You need a pinger. You need a way to convert that pinger into a pirate. And then you need any way to trigger it. So it's 3 pieces. But the third piece is kind of a soft piece because the list plays around 40 instants and sorceries altogether, something like that. So you've got ways and artifacts. There's numerous ways to trigger your pingers. The chances of you having the trigger in hand is going to be extremely high.
Let's kind of start from the beginning, though, right? Yeah. Yep. So, not saying you're jumping the gun, but you're kind of getting to the meat and potatoes already.
Yeah. I wanted to give the win con so that we can kind of work backwards towards how we're getting to the win con.
Yes,
so
completely.
If that's the win con, and then you have your other Malcolm Red combo in there as your win con. The way to get there, once again, it does take a few pieces to get there, is by accruing value through your pirates, right? Through your pirate creatures that are triggering both Malcolm and Breaches as you're hitting people, or using your pingers as well, because you can use your pingers, you can put a curiosity on them, you can use that to accrue card advantage. There are also a few other spicy includes that I will not give away quite yet. We can talk about after the tournament, but there's a number of ways to trigger the pirates, exile cards off the top of your opponent's libraries, or making treasures, and you're doing that multiple times every turn once you have at least one of your commanders out, which ideally is like turn 3, and then you're just kind of off to the races building up.
Let's kind of start with the creature package. So how about we just start from the creature package and go from there. One thing I kind of want to point out, you have a few different creatures than most standard pirate lists and or Malcolm lists just generally. And I do know Franklin is very keen on a few of these creatures. And I think I'd like to bring up kind of specific creatures and let's discuss like why they are viable in the list just to begin with, right? And Franklin, let's start with you. One creature that I know that you are incredibly familiar with and have had very positive experiences with is Blister Spit Gremlin. I know this is a weird one for a lot of people. 9 out of 10 people see this creature and they're kind of like, why would you even play this in a pirate shell or something along those lines? What are your thoughts on like a creature like this, Franklin? Like, what do you think?
It's a 1-drop Unruly Catapult, Thermal Alchemist. It's another copy of that. Sure, it has a cost to activate it, but in Malcolm Red List, when it's a pirate, it pays for its own cost. The only issue is that it doesn't go off as hard as the other ones, but it's a 1-drop. If you don't have anything else to do, you ping people anyway. Strongbow and Sunshine Militia have the same issue.
Like we could call it an issue. I don't know if we could truly say it's an issue. I think something relevant that this creature says is that whenever you cast a non-creature spell specifically, you untap it. It's one of the few creatures in the list that has this specific ability, which I know doesn't sound that relevant because other creatures, so for instance, if we go on like Keswick Flame Breather, right, which is one of the most notable ones in the list.
Yeah,
it's just whenever you
only
cast,
and sorceries.
Right? Well, no, Keswick is specifically non-creature. But it's when
I'm thinking of all the other spell pingers.
Yes, exactly. But Keswick is specifically non-creature spells, which is most of your deck, right?
Yeah.
But the irony is that because of the list, and I know, Rohan, I think you're going to agree with me with this one, what Blister Spit has somewhat above these is that you're able to cast, for instance, an Ophidian Eye on your Blister Spit. And if you put it on your Keswick or your Fireburn Archer or any of your other creatures that have that style of ability, you won't receive the 3 cards, right? Because Ophidian Eye is a 3-mana aura that says whenever your creature does damage to an opponent, you draw a card. Specifically, what happens here is that when you cast the card, because of Keswick Flame Breather's ability, it will trigger and it will just deal the damage and then you won't draw the cards. But Blister Spit specifically says, oh, you put it on my dude. Now you pay the 1. Now I get to tap it and deal the damage, which is ironically not as good, but better in a lot of situations in our format. I've seen situations that is, quote, negative because of the way our format is kind of oriented. It is better 90% of the time, if I could put that out there.
Yeah. You run into those awkward situations with Ophidian Eye specifically, where you want to trigger it, you want to get the card advantage off of it, but you have to like do your pirate pink was your pirate type changer first, and then slap Ophidian Eye, or sometimes you have to order it backwards and pray to God that people interact with it differently.
Yep, totally agree.
Weird, depending on the situation.
Yep.
But with that said, I really want to go back to, because we're not going to be doing a full deck tech, you guys. We're kind of just discussing like the ins and out of the list. We're kind of picking on a few cards here and there. We're going to be doing a full deck tech after the tournament in our experiences. But this is kind of like our little prequel and kind of the philosophy about the deck. And with that, I would like to move back to Rohan's philosophy and kind of go back to the sorcery package. And the reason I want to hit on the sorcery package is we're moving back to what Rohan was saying earlier about we're this mid-rangey style deck. We're this value accruing deck. Could you give us a little bit of feedback of like why you're playing cards like Probe, or why you're playing, I mean, you have these massive draw effects like Compulsive Research, Secrets of the Golden City, like Reverse Engineering, Lorien Revealed. Like you just have these massive draw effects. Like what is the reasoning behind these just like big, fat, juicy draw and draw and draw? Like what is the purpose behind these?
Yeah. as you mentioned before, it's a farm deck. The idea is to accrue resources and to break parity on your resource accrual versus the table. So, Commander's a 4-person game, right? Like when you draw one card, you are not breaking parity. You're actually kind of behind still. The only way to like be at parity is to draw one card for each of your opponents. Is to really draw 3 cards. So like that gives you a real advantage. So we're trying to get there as much as possible. The idea of this deck is to set up, is to get to a place where you can set up an engine and to make every card count as hard and as much and be as valuable as possible to make sure that you're consistently outvaluing your opponents. So that's why when we have draw cards in this deck, we want those cards to draw as many cards for as few resources that we're putting in as possible. Which is why, we're running things like Secrets of the Golden City, it's 3 mana for 3 cards. That's a pretty damn good return. But even less about the mana, it's 1 card for 3 cards. Mm-hmm. And it's feasible, right? It's doable. We can get there turn 5, turn 6, and that's awesome. And that immediately is putting us ahead. The chances of that drawing us into combo is pretty high. Drawing us into interaction is wildly high because the deck is, even though it's not a control deck, it's still got plenty of it. They're not all counter spells though, but it's still interaction. It's just trying to get you there. It's trying to get you to, so it's like engines get you these big draw spells that get you into bigger engines. You're just like creating this machine that is trying to get you to a place where once you start popping off, you're undeniable. There's no one that can stop you. There's nothing they can do about it. You've heard me say this before in other episodes that, I modeled this after Blue Farm, I modeled it after the CEDH, philosophy of that particular deck. The difference obviously is that deck can do explosive turn 1, turn 2 things. This deck cannot. It's a format difference. With that said, the general idea behind it is the same. And even if you're a CDH player and you followed, the arc of Blue Farm and how that deck has changed over time, it's really like moved towards focusing on the engine and really focusing on winning second, on winning third even, winning later after everyone has played all their counter spells, played all their interactions. Then it's like, I have 1 million cards. There's literally nothing you can do to stop me now. I'm going to win.
Yeah, and I believe the finals of the Top Deck Invitational showed that.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah. So this deck wants to do that, and with that said, it does make the hardest part about the deck, in my opinion, is finding your window because of that, because it's not nearly as obvious as a deck that's trying to go extremely fast. And you do have to, if you're a great poker player, you're probably really great at playing this deck because you do have to make some reads sometimes, and that's why I play a card like Git Probe. Git Probe is there to help you find your window. The other thing is that it's free to play, right? So it's doing 2 things that the deck loves to do, or 3 things even. It's a free trigger for a combo turn, which is awesome. It is drawing a card for no mana, which immediately puts you above parity, and then it is helping you find your window. So those are all things the deck loves.
Well, let me kind of shift focus, right? So we kind of spoke a little bit about these sorceries, but let's move over to the instants. And Franklin, I'm going to kind of poke and prod over at you for some of these instants. Rohan, you alluded to that this deck has a decent amount, and I'm kind of using that a little bit free with my words there, of interaction. But realistically, if you're looking at this deck list, you have a metric fuck ton. Like, that's the nicest way I could say it. You start from the top, like from Dispel all the way, like I can't scroll fast enough to not see more. Like, is it Charms, Muddle, Snapbacks, Negates, like Fiery Cannonades, Heated Debates, Thunderclaps, like all the way down to the last row of your instance is interaction. What are your thoughts on some of this interaction, Franklin? Like, I know you're pretty high on Malcolm Red as an archetype, specifically not Breaches, but as a whole, that archetype. What do you What do you think about the interaction package here in this list?
You still need to store them off eventually. Like, whether it's off of your opponent's cards, or your own cards, you need to be able to just keep casting stuff. Once you're on your storm turn, just throwing just interaction into your own self, just go, hey, I'm going to play this, hold priority, counter it, hold priority again, counter it again, while you're building treasures and you're milling cards off for your opponent's deck. So that's super important. And just having redundancy in protection pieces such as Dive Down and Shore Up, amazing.
I do like those quite a bit. The list.
You know who else likes them, Chris? Our supporters over on Patreon and all of our subscribers too, which we recently just hit over 320. So thank you so much, everyone.
Yes, totally agree. Very much agree, you guys. That's why we're going to have a very heated debate. That's my little plug there. Yeah, bad dad pun, whatever. That was it, you guys. That's all I had. The interaction package in this list, I have to give it to you, Rohan. I think it's beautiful. Something that I want to make it a point to discuss is the free interaction. Now, I understand there's not a lot of it, but this is a deck that will tap out on a turn where a Laidlore or a Gretchen, right? Let's pick on those two decks. Let's pick on the Simic decks for this conversation. One of these Simic piles is going to go for one attempt, and you could tap out responsibly and go, yeah, go for it, man. You sit back, and as soon as one of them does, they're going to believe that your shields are down, and you're going to throw a snapback into a thunderclap. How do you feel? What do you think about these free interactive spells? I know they're kind of like, a lot of people really don't believe that they're worth it in a lot of deck lists. Obviously, you know, I'm very high on them myself, but I really want to hear your thoughts behind them, because do you truly find them to be worth it? Because let's be honest, you're losing resources, right? The whole point of your deck is to gain resources, and both of these cards specifically go backwards for you. So why are they even worth it, in your opinion?
I kind of agree with you. So while you say that you're losing resources, I would argue that there's three major resources in Magic, right? There's mana, obviously, right? There's cards, the actual cards themselves. But the third one is time. Time is a resource. The amount of turns is a resource. And holding up mana to hold up interaction is a soft time walk of sorts. You know, if you could have played your spell, like if you had something that could have put you, ahead or put you in advantage by playing it to the board a turn earlier, that's significant. And it's even more significant in a 4-player game. It's super important. I mean, it's why, like, CPEDH again plays so many free spells. It's so that you can commit to the board as much as possible, putting stuff out there, and then, still hold up interaction. And this is the same thing, right? You don't have to hold up the mana to use these spells, effectively, allowing you to play to the board a little bit harder. And in the first, 5 turns, this deck is playing to the board quite a lot. And it really wants to, in order to, once again, get those engines online. You really want to get the engines online as soon as possible, so you can start accruing the resources. So then, you can hold up that mana to interact and do what you need to do. But in those first few critical turns, when you don't want to hold stuff up, if you don't have to, then you've got cards in hand that allow you to do that, which is really, really critical. Also, the amount of times I've blown out other people's combos with Snapback and Thunderclap is actually absurd.
Yeah.
So there's just that too, right? Just a surprise factor. Yeah. That actually works.
Let me throw this 2 cents out there. If you guys don't know yet, our format is very much dictated upon 3 toughness, 2 toughness creatures for all of our combo outlets. There's a very, very small select 4 toughness creatures in our format that are combo outlets. Yeah, so I think there's 2, I believe.
Yeah, just Abdo and Galvanic Alchemist?
No, Galvanic Alchemist has 32 hoops to jump through. It's Steelfin Whale.
Oh, yeah, Steelfin Whale.
Abdo. Yeah, right. Like it's some weird, wonky cards. Very, very few far in between. Very few far in between. And so Thunderclap can handle 99% of all combos in our format, and Snapback, because of the way our format functions, stops all of them.
Yeah, pretty much.
Can't truly, like, it's situational, right? But realistically, like, it's going to stop the combo turn, even if it just like returns it to hand and then you know they're going to do it for the next turn. Very similar to the CDH format. You're going to be like, guys, we know they're going to win. Like, it's in their hand. We need to handle this situation, right? So Snapback is a fantastic card. I completely agree with you, Rohan. I find these cards to be backbreaking. You have no idea. I'm in the same boat as you. I have won countless games on the back of these cards. And I believe decks like this, these slower mid-rangey piles, cannot exist without taking the hit by playing cards like this, because you're not truly losing resources. And I can prove it. Ready? If you don't do it, you lose the game. You just lost the game, right? Like, what resources have you lost? Oh, you fucking lost, right? Ta-da! So, are these better than losing the game? Yes. Hands down. You can't even argue with that, right? But I want to move on to the next section, the artifacts. You actually have a little bit, and I'm gonna pick on Franklin again, because Franklin is a fan of a few artifacts, but I believe you don't have his number one card. I know he's super high on this card, and that is Moon Silver Key. Is that
no, Moonsnare Prototype.
Moonsnare Prototype, sorry.
Moonsilver Key is uncommon.
Yes, yeah, I'm thinking of too much CEDH.
It's all right. You want it in your life.
I do. But that card, Franklin, I know you love it.
Yeah,
Talk about it. It's not here.
It's a one drop. Sure, it costs 1 blue mana, but whatever. It's a one drop that's basically a free. It's another Springleaf Drum. It makes colorless instead of colored mana, but who cares? It's an artifact trigger. And that's all you really need sometimes. And it has a bonus ability of bouncing something back for free, uncounterable for 5 mana.
The card is very good. It's one of those like accidental, like, oh, I drew removal that's like free removal that isn't removal, and card is just gas. But you're not playing that. So it's one of those weird things, right? But your deck has the one thing that all the other Malcolm variants do not play: Mana Rocks. Why are you playing Mana Rocks? What is the reason behind that? Like, enlighten us, please.
Yeah. So again, this deck is all about getting its engine online, but it's not just. That's not where the buck stops. The engine has to be online, and then it needs to start accruing. Then you're starting to grind out, and like your chances of winning get exponentially better as the game goes longer with this deck. So with that said, if you're running a bunch of fast mana instead, or a bunch of rituals, while you might get your engine online, once that's happening, if you get interacted with, if it gets put offline, if something happens, which inevitably is. That's just magic. That's going to happen. Sometimes you don't always have a counterspell for everything, right?
Yeah.
You want to be able to get your engine back online as quickly as possible, so you can keep accruing those resources to eventually get win the game. If you were just playing a bunch of rituals, yeah, you might increase your chances of getting like a turn 4, turn 5 win. That's it. After that, you'll have no gas left. So
to back up on what you said
very quickly.
And to back up on what you said earlier, I believe you said you wanted to commit pieces to the board, and
yes,
Mana Rocks is the easiest way to commit material to the board.
Yep.
As well as, again, if something happens to your Malcolm Mercatus, you just recast it. If all your charges go away, at least you still have your rocks.
Yep, exactly. I mean, and Breaches is he's a big boy. That's 4 CMC. He dies. It's 6 to bring him back. The beauty of the deck is that you don't really always need him on board. But even Malcolm, right? Malcolm dies a few times. You don't have the really insane mana engine that you have with like a Malcolm Kedis, where once that you get like one hit or even like one hit in with Malcolm really is just enough to be able to recast him like every time. So, and you're playing things like haste enablers to be able to do that, to keep that going. It's just a different way of accruing value. That's like spiking out its value really quickly and really early. Whereas this really wants to it's not just mana, it's about everything. You're getting cards, you're getting mana, getting time because you're able to commit to the board and to put a lot of stuff out there and then protect those things as well.
Yep.
So it's just a different way it's a slower, maybe slightly more intentional way of getting those resources. You're like really picking a point of when you're going to go off. And like when you're playing this deck, once you look at your opening hand, or at least when I play it and I look at my opening hand, I have a pretty good idea of what turn I'm looking to go off right away, just from the opening hand, most of the time.
I find this deck to be very, I almost want to call it greedy, but I know that's not the proper word to say. Like,
they're pirates, bro.
Yeah, it wants its cake and it wants to eat it too. Like, it's all about, like, here's my mana rock. Oh, some mana rock, really? Like, what are you doing? Oh, here's my Malcolm. Oh, kill it. Oh, well, I have a mana rock and I have another mana rock, so you killed it. Here's a land for turn. Here's my resource again. And you just keep reiterating this process and keep accruing and doing everything that you need. I really like the list. I'm very excited to play it here this upcoming weekend with you and see what we can honestly accomplish. With that said, I would like to just kind of wrap this up and last little tidbit of your guys' thoughts. My thoughts on this is I think this deck is going to be pretty strong going into the tournament. I like where we're going to be. I feel that we have pretty good ways to defend ourselves and be very proactive, which I think is one of the best parts about this deck, is that we're able to be reactive and proactive throughout the entire event. And honestly, I also think the deck can mulligan quite well. But where do you guys' last little bits of thought on it? And let's take this on home.
I just want to say that this is something that we're going to be looking to do, not just with this deck, of course, but with numerous other decks. So, of course, the decks that we play, between the three of us, our favorites, but then also your favorites. We would love to get submissions from you guys. Join our Discord and drop a line. Let us know what you want us to play. We're certainly looking forward to it.
And let us know, because we are more than happy to do videos of your deck, exactly what we're doing right now, discussing our thoughts on the list prior to tournaments or even after the events. And we're more than happy to, you guys want to hit us up in Patreon, submit us lists, we will play it. The three of us will be playing your list with your thoughts. So let us know. We are very happy to do it. Franklin, your thoughts?
Yep, so with all of our experience between playing different Malcolm Red variants and playing Abdel, so playing something that's like a good, nice mix between Malcolm Kedis, Abdel, having all of these control pieces, mana rocks, just ways to trigger breaches with breaches activations. This should be great. Plus, with three of us playing the same exact list, it's going to be improbable for one of us to not at least make it to top 8. So with that, join our Patreon at the $50 tier, just so you can get coaching on the deck, on the deck that you want to submit. We will play it. We'll all register the same list, give you all the feedback that you need, write up a nice little report, have a little video for you made, and everything's going to be wonderful. But with that, thank you, everyone. Like the video on YouTube. Hit the little bell to get notifications for when we go live on Monday mornings. Shorts go out every Tuesday evening at 6 Eastern. We're on TikTok, Instagram, which Shorts are going out there now. Listen to us on Spotify. And I think that's all the socials that we hit on. So with that, thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Yep. Thanks, guys.
Later.
Here's a shout out to all of our patrons: Eric Christopher, Aaron, Dax, Devin, Rohan, Little Rat Lotad, Kunks, and Scoob. Thank you, everyone, for all of your support.